June 24, 1912. The Evening Argus, Owasso, Michigan. Ghost alarms the police. New York officers say it is a veteran of the Revolutionary War. Roundsman doubts story. New York. The old soldier is walking again on Morningside Heights. An uneasy veteran is he. Just because someone sneaked into his tent in the War of the Revolution and thrust one of the old-fashioned broadswords through him, he has been an annoyance to the residents of that vicinity for more than 100 years. Nowadays, the neighborhood is grown up in apartment houses, but that makes no difference to him. He oozes out of the janitor's door of the house which occupies the former site of his tent and goes for his midnight stroll as nonchalantly as ever. Fortunately, he doesn't walk often. The other night, Cy Townsend, the policeman who has the fixed post at 119th Street and Morningside Avenue, saw the hazy figure of the old soldier gliding by him. Policeman Townsend made a perfectly horrible noise as he beat it in the general direction of his patrolling mate. He found the officer in a high fever. He had seen the old soldier too. A Nighthawk cab driver had also been favored by a sight of the visitant. The Nighthawk was making strange noises in his throat. As they were discussing the weird occurrence, the roundsman came by. "We saw the old soldier," said the three in chorus. The roundsman carefully smelled the breath of the three. The two coppers passed muster. The roundsman stepped well to the windward of the Nighthawk after the first sniff and began his interrogatories. "Nix on this ghost stuff," said the roundsman after he concluded his questions. "If the old soldier comes around here again, you guys want to make an arrest, or you go up on charges." Policeman Townsend and his mate were white and shaky. They wanted to know on what charge they could arrest a ghost, even supposing that the ghost submitted peaceably to arrest. "Well," said the roundsman, "what does this old soldier spook look like anyway? Does he wear a uniform? Has he any legs?" After consultation, the two policemen attested that the old soldier was in mufti. Also, he had no legs. He just sorta slipped along, kinda wavering like. The roundsman spoke with decision. "If he ain't got no legs," said he, "you can pinch him for having no visible means of support." Then he went away chortling. Policeman Townsend and his mate have decided they do not like that roundsman. November 20, 1915. The Havre Plain Dealer, Havre, Montana. Soldiers' Visions. A ghost that led a Serbian army to a brilliant victory. That soldiers suffer from torturing nightmares as a result of the strain of being continually under fire is well known, but few people are aware that troops in the field often have astonishing visions. The late Lord Roberts, on several occasions, stated in his dispatches during the Afghanistan campaign that seasoned soldiers would at times declare that they could distinguish hordes of natives approaching. It often happened that a dozen recruits would swear that they could discern an army in the distance, whereas they were merely victims of nerves. Experienced soldiers on occasions have extraordinary visions during the heat of battle, which are astonishing insomuch as they affect whole battalions and not solitary individuals. During the Balkan War, the Serbian army on one occasion won a brilliant victory, which the men swore was given to them by a ghost who led them into battle. The Serbian infantry were stationed on the foot of the Mount of Prilip, on which stood the castle of the Royal Prince Marko, a 14th century warrior who is a national Serbian hero. The troops had to attack a Turkish force which held the castle, but they were cautioned against storming the fortress until artillery had broken down the defense. Before the order to charge was given, however, the Serbians, shouting wildly, dashed forward, and after a desperate struggle, completely routed the Turks. When reproached by their leader for disobeying orders, the victorious soldiers shouted in a body, "Kraljevich Marko commanded us forward. Did you not see him on his chariots?" The latter being the great soldier's horse, famous in legend. It was clear, said the officer who related the story, that the tradition of Kraljevic Marko was so deeply engraved on the hearts of those heroic men that in their vivid enthusiasm they had seen the incarnation of their hero. The terrible sights which soldiers see during the war often haunt them for years afterward. Napoleon, when languishing on Elba, is said to have been tortured by visions of his army retreating from the ruins of Moscow, while Dr. Brydon, the sole survivor of the Kabul massacre, was never wholly free from distressing nightmares in which the frightful scenes he had witnessed were conjured up in his mind. There have been cases in which soldiers have been convinced that the ghost of a dead commander haunts their regiment. In the 60s, a past leader of the London Rifle Brigade was said to haunt his old corps in spirit form. London answers. July 24, 1958. The News and Eastern Townships Advocate, St. John's, Province of Quebec. Who haunted the barracks of Sydney, Nova Scotia? One of the most famous and best attested of Canadian ghost stories tells of an apparition seen by Captain John Sherbrooke and Lieutenant George Wynyard in the barracks at Sydney, Nova Scotia at 4 p.m. on October 15, 1785. The two men saw a figure Wynyard recognized as his brother, Lieutenant John Otto Wynyard, then serving in India. 8 months later, news reached Sydney of the brother's death at a time found to correspond with the appearance of the apparition in the Sydney barracks. Even more convincing were the ghostly sounds heard by Chief Factor Roderick McFarlane of the Hudson's Bay Company and his companion during the convoy in 1860 of the exhumed corpse of Augustus Piers from Fort McPherson in the Mackenzie Delta to Fort Simpson, 800 miles south, for reburial. Warning calls were apparently heard, which had the effect of protecting the corpse from the ravages of dogs and wolves, etc.